Hey, I'm Johanna Musgrave, and I put scripture to music, and I want to tell you about my latest album. I have found that when God invites me into something, he tends to lead me blindfolded, backward, into the things that he asks of me, because he knows if I see the big picture, I'll get spooked, and I'll sit on it forever. And this album was no exception. So after Lamplight, ABC Scripture Songs came out, I had my third daughter and entered into a really dark postpartum season that I could not shake. And about 18 months into that, I was asked to lead some of my songs from Lamplight for a scripture memory seminar, and I barely said yes. But no joke, the day before, I had been at coffee with an artist friend of mine, and she told me that she had been practicing a say yes now, figure it out later mantra with her art. And I kind of was like, that's really cool for you. And then I got this invitation to play these songs that I hadn't touched in 18 months. And I said yes and practiced that figure it out later. And so it went fine, but I met a lady named Joyce Lassie at that seminar, and she was speaking about the value of scripture memory. And when she spoke, it was like the whole room leaned in. Like, she spoke with a different kind of wisdom and weightiness, and it was really moving. And so I went over to say thank you and hello, and I ended up in a conversation with her and a girl I barely knew who invited me to meet up with her and Joyce and another girl I didn't even know to talk more about scripture memory. And I said yes, because what else are you gonna do when the people who are inviting you are staring at you? But remember, I was in a season where I had to muster the motivation to even make dinner for my family. And so God really leveraged my people-pleasing tendency to get me to that meeting the following week. And he's kind like that, to use even our weaknesses for our good and his glory. So Joyce essentially said at that meeting, I can't tell you how to memorize scripture, but I can do it with you. And so we all agreed to keep meeting. And I know that I memorize best to music. And so I felt that nudge from the Lord after that first meeting to just write a simple melody to the verses that were assigned. And I said yes, but it was more like a fine, because I hadn't been creative or even felt like I had the margin to be creative in a really long time. And I did, and it felt okay. And then the next week, I said yes again to write 2 more melodies, and it turned out that this became a weekly rhythm of writing 2 melodies to scripture every week so that we could memorize. And then the group grew, and it became a resource for the girls in the room, and that was just really cool. So that rhythm continued for like another 18 months, and I realized probably at the 9-month to a year mark that the darkness that I had been in just wasn't as dark. And it took a long, long time, but the darkness lifted, and with that came margin to create with a little bit more curiosity and intentionality, like exploring the scripture and asking myself, like, what's the main message of this passage, and how do I musically communicate that in addition to melodically? And then I started writing extra songs for the verses that weren't assigned but had been referenced in our Bible study, and that became a really rich rhythm. And then I started kind of choosing my own verses, and this became just a rhythm that I craved. And I started to feel this like nudge to maybe like curate a list and release music. And just out of curiosity, I did like a quick count of all of the songs that I had written, and it was like over 100, which just felt wild to me. And that list of songs just came out of 100 teeny tiny yeses and small moments of obedience and small moments of perseverance. And God moved me out of darkness into the light by the power of his word. I learned so much about him, and I've been a student of the word for a really long time, but those 2 years were like potent. And I found myself marveling at him and his word and his kindness and his care of his people. And in my daily life, I saw him everywhere, as if knowing who I was looking for, I couldn't miss him. It was incredible. And in Psalm 40, verse 2, David says, God lifted me out of the pit of despair. Out of the mud and the mire, he set my feet on solid ground, and he steadied me as I walked along. And this album is a creative monument for me to that journey. And now you get to experience that journey as well. And I hope you enjoy it.